Namaskar. So there's a great deal of wisdom in the expression about starting with the end in mind. No, when you start something, to already have a clear sense of where you want to go. And this is helping you to use your energy wisely and efficiently. This last part of Dharma is called tadsthiti. And it is about having a clear understanding of what is the goal, not only of your spiritual practice, but what is really the ultimate goal towards which our human lives are destined, are meant to move towards. What is this whole form of ours designed to do? What is its ultimate expression? And so a clear understanding of this is helping to direct and use all of the other elements that we've already talked about within Dharma. We've talked about rasa, about flow. We've talked about expansion towards the infinite. And we've talked about seva and being able to serve. And so all of these, when they get channelized and directed towards one point, then we can achieve the full flowering of our human potential. Yoga is designed to take all of our thoughts, all of our being, and to achieve a type of one-pointed focus. And that one-pointed focus is kind of like taking the rays of light, which, when they're dispersed, they provide us with light and beauty and color and form. But when those same rays of light are focused, all directed towards one point, we get a laser. And that laser has incredible penetrating ability, right? And it can cut through all types of surfaces and obstacles. And so our mind tends to be dispersive, and it fills our world with all types of forms and colors and distractions. And when we're able to withdraw that same energy of our mind, and we're able to point it inside towards our own entity, towards our own sense of existence, and we can achieve a one-pointed focus on this. It's a really miraculous thing, but the very center of your existential feeling of I-ness, we all have a sense of self. We all have that sense of I-ness. That I-ness is within a cosmic I-ness. Our nucleus coincides with the nucleus of everything. And when we let go of the individuality of it, we're able to experience a cosmic sense of oneness, a deepest sense of fulfillment. This is also called samadhi, union, merger. This is like a drop of water entering into the sea. No, the drop of water is just an ordinary, small, little, limited thing. Just like how we feel pretty ordinary, simple, who am I to have this ambition to become one with the universe? No, it seems quite, maybe even arrogant. No, it's such a huge aspiration. And yet we're so aware of our limitedness, of our ordinariness, of just being a small human being. It can seem quite far away, this idea of oneness with the cosmos. And yet that is what, our whole structure, our whole being is designed to do. It's designed to experience this. I find it quite fascinating and amazing that our human brain contains, the ability to create certain neurochemicals that induce, states of trance and of ecstasy that are self-generated, that they hardly understand. They've only maybe slightly began to understand it. Sometimes people take external substances to try and induce states that are analogous, that but they activate structures and they activate potentials that exist all the time within our being. That's what I mean when I say the whole system is actually designed to do this. And it's not related to just survival of the fittest, because these types of transcendental feelings don't necessarily make that person want to go out and multiply themselves. It's a very internal experience. It's a very, very special, subtle experience that we all can access. But we have to learn how to use the instrument appropriately. And the yogic sciences are basically refining, like, how do we use this instrument? Like, finding ways that optimize, that help us to access those states, not just randomly or by chance or by accident, but to do it in a systematic way. Because, these experiences are universal and they're human. And so as such, you will find, records of transcendental mystical experiences across all cultures that have very, very similar characteristics. Very similar characteristics about feeling a sense of infinite light, expansion, joy, oneness, losing consciousness of the small self and just feeling an immersion in that. You'll find stories of this. I was reading stories about Saint Ignatius of Loyola, because I have an uncle who's a Jesuit, and there was books on his life, in my grandmother's house. And so I remember, reading, and I was fascinated. Like, it was talking about how he went off to be a knight for God. He had this strong feeling in his mind. He'd been a knight, he'd been a warrior, he'd broken his leg, he wasn't satisfied with how it healed. He asked him to heal it again so that he'd wear his long boots so that he could go in, into dueling again for ladies and things like this. And then, he only had the Bible to read, which at first he found really boring, but then it kind of awakened his whole kind of spiritual warrior energy, but in a direction towards, no, I must be a warrior for God. And he went off on this quest, walking and fasting. And at a certain point, he reaches a river, and he's fully involved in his in this deeply devotional feeling towards God. It's very intense and close in his mind. And then when he bends down into the river just to drink water, he loses consciousness, and he finds himself just immersed in this effulgent light, in this radiant light that just gives him a sense of knowledge, of peace, of love, of expansion, of oneness. This is exactly a description of yogic samadhi. And this was not somebody who'd ever heard of yoga and probably never would hear of it his whole life. So, these same experiences of oneness, of unity, of merger, they're not the monopoly of any particular system. People can just, through the intensity of their desire, can achieve that one-pointed focus. And when they achieve that one-pointed focus, especially if it's mystically oriented, in a mystical relationship with God, like that saint did, then they experience this. Also, there's a woman saint, Hildegard von Bingen, and she would also just spontaneously fall. She talked about her experiences of falling unconscious into that mystical trance. She would refer to her experience of God as the living light. Just this sense of an expanding light. And I could count numerous examples also of yogis, of course, because that's exactly what the practice is designed to do, is to experience, in yoga they call it Jyotir Brahma. It means Brahma, or God, in the form of luminosity, in the form of light, in the form of, also bhav. There's all kinds of blissful feelings that arise from inside spontaneously when the mind gets closer and closer to that essence, to that core, to that nucleus. So this is the thing. We feel ordinary. We feel small. We feel very limited. But we are a drop of water. Our essence, our I feeling, is made out of the same consciousness, out of the same energy, out of the same substance, as you could say, as a great ocean that we are actually immersed in. And when that drop of water enters into contact with the ocean, you're not going to find a drop of water anymore. You can't separate it out. in yoga, there's also the image of a salt doll that goes to measure the depths of the ocean. Yeah, and it just dissolves into the ocean. You cannot find the salt doll anymore. That bit of salt, it just dissolves into oneness. So why don't we feel it all the time? Well, it's also like, another image that I like is of a clay pot that's immersed within water. And so the water actually inside of the pot and outside of the pot, is there really a difference? The only difference is the pot itself, which is separating the water inside from the water outside. Yogic practice, what is it? Not only yogic, any spiritual practice that's really authentic and really going to help you to evolve, what's it doing? It's helping you to remove the sense of the clay pot and to experience the water, the essence of yourself, just being one with the essence of everything around it. Removing that sense of limitedness, that sense of ego, separation, the separate self. And to discover that within, deep within, we are all one. That feeling, when it becomes a profound realization, that's what gives you the feeling of love and compassion for all. Because you realize that everything has that same thing, that same essence inside, that same consciousness. So this is tadstiti. It's the goal of our practice. When we have that clarity, it gives direction to everything we do. Now, do we need to have a goal? Should we be focused on a goal? I'm remembering Alice in Wonderland. No, and Alice, at one point, she goes and she's found herself now in Wonderland, and she meets the Cheshire Cat. And she says, can you tell me where I can go? And the cat says, well, that depends where you're trying to get to. And she said, well, I'm just trying to get, I don't know exactly where I'm going. I don't care. And he says, well, then it doesn't matter. Any road you take will take you there. And she said, well, I do want to go somewhere. And he said, well, then if you just walk long enough, you'll also get there. So this is the thing with life. No, if we don't know where we're going, that's probably where we're going to end up. Nowhere in particular. And if we just want to go somewhere, but we don't know exactly where, well, if we just keep going and going, we'll end up somewhere, but is it really where we wanted to go? I prefer this idea that we should be the captain of our ship, the master of our soul. This is from a poem. Yes, that it is helpful to have a clarity about our sublime potential, about what is, the ultimate destination. Because when we have that clarity, then we can get there. If we don't know where we're going, we might just go in a circle. We might not actually make any progress. We might not go anywhere. We might even go backwards. On the other hand, there is the interesting thing that when you're deeply in rasa, when you're in the flow, when you awaken to the spiritual flow, then the goal is kind of a doing, not doing. You are trying to live in the supreme self, not in the limited self. And so the secret to getting there is kind of to not do, to let go, to surrender. So this is that doing, not doing. Also the teaching of Taoism, no? Doing, not doing. That doesn't mean just to be passive and to not care and to just go with any flow without any idea of what's going on. It does mean to let go of the small self, small ambitions, grasping nature, limitedness, self-centeredness, and to be able to open up and allow grace to guide us towards a higher goal or towards not our personal, individual, small self's sense of happiness, which is limited, but towards making that supreme entity blissful. And what more bliss does that supreme entity have than when it absorbs us into itself, when we become one with it, the supreme merger, the supreme union. Yes, so this is this is the mystery, that we obtain the goal when we are completely open and completely surrendered and have let go towards any kind of small goal, self-seeking type of behavior. There's this beautiful idea that my master gave, that grace is raining on everyone all the time. But some people feel it and some people don't. Why? Depends if you have your umbrella up. The umbrella represents your ego. No? And so if you're not getting drenched by that rain that wants to drench everything, it's because your small ego is up and protecting yourself. And so you have to just let it go. Be willing to be open, be willing to trust, be willing to feel that there is a higher intelligence guiding you. And the way that you can cultivate this, Tadstiti doesn't just happen by accident. I mean, I explained how it can happen spontaneously. But even when it happens spontaneously, there was effort involved. A blissful type of effort, almost like a magnet that's attracted to the iron. No, because when I read about these other traditions with other types of saints, no, that reach similar states of union and samadhi and merger, it is because of intense spiritual desire. So if there was only one thing that you were to focus, it would be that: love. Love in its most universal, pure, life-giving, source of vitality type of love. Not just a love for a particular entity or being, small being. Love for your child, love for your friend, but this love for the supreme source of love itself. And that type of love leads to transcendence, leads to the highest expression of our human nature, of our human dharma. Then our dharma becomes complete. Without any of these elements, the dharma will not become complete. It needs all of them. All of them. Even only focusing on your self-realization could make you selfish and still far from the goal. There's a story of one very, very advanced yogi who'd actually held on to his physical body for way beyond the normal limits of human life. And he still wasn't able to attain the supreme goal, even though he was so advanced. Tatapuri. And eventually, he met my master. And it was only when my master taught him the simplest practice, which we teach you in the basic meditation course of kirtan, of dynamic meditation, which includes this idea of opening up and letting go and giving joy to the Supreme. Not trying to get, but trying to just give. And that sense of service. He'd actually not completed Seva in his expression of Dharma. He had all the other elements: spiritual flow, Vistara, expansion, and merger. He was able to go into trance states, but he wasn't able to completely be liberated until he had fulfilled Seva, until he'd been able to fulfill his approach of service towards others. So, use all of these four aspects so that you can fully develop as a human being, reach your highest potential. And, in the meantime, even just the process of it, even just the effort to kind of develop all of these aspects of Dharma, it's going to make your life more blissful. It's going to make your life more fulfilling. You're going to have more joy, more sense of satisfaction in life. So, Even the longest journey begins with a single step. So just start moving and have that goal in mind. It might seem far away. It might seem abstract to you now, but it's your destiny. You're going to get there. In one life or another, you are going to get there. It is your ultimate goal, your ultimate end point of all journeys is there in Tadstiti. So I wish you success. I hope you will go and practice meditation with even more inspiration and clarity and joy. Namaskar.